Yes, hello, good afternoon. Today is Thursday, September the 18th. And today, and by the way, I hope you enjoyed the Martin Luther rap. The Martin Luther rap. Yes, who knew that history could be so fun? But today we're going to talk about your friend and mine, John Calvin. Let's see. Questions on the test about John Calvin. Number one will be to talk about the three churches that descended from John Calvin and Calvinism. One, of course, were in France. The French were called French Calvinists were called Huguenots. Hugonots. We'll see more about them in the next chapter. The other in the Netherlands, they're called the Dutch Reformed Church. And you're saying, well, I don't know of any Dutch Reformed Church in the United States, and you'd be wrong. The fact of the matter is, a large number of Dutch people settled up in Indiana and Michigan. Fact of the matter is, in Western Michigan, there are actually more Calvinists than there are Roman Catholics. And that's unusual because as we learn more and more about this country's European heritage, Roman Catholicism as a faith dominates the northern tier of states. Fact of the matter is, and I said Roman Catholicism, I know what I'm talking about. Fact of the matter is, the Ohio River, greater Cincinnati area is like the bottom, the southern edge of what I call the Catholic belt that stretches basically from New England, Maine, Massachusetts, New England, all the way across into the Midwest, Chicago, Wisconsin, Minnesota, don't you know? Yes, the Catholic belt. I mean, think of it. If you were to get in your car and drive 50 miles south of here, you would be hard pressed to find Catholics. You get in that same car and drive 50 miles, 10 miles north of here, there are Catholics everywhere. I mean, goodness, Catholic church and school right across the street. You go down south, there are a number of counties in Kentucky that don't have a Catholic church. Yeah, but you go into Ohio, Indiana, every county has a Catholic church, if not more, multiple Catholic churches. Now, but we were talking about the Dutch Reformed Church, weren't we? But in Michigan, Western Michigan, as you are about to learn, is one of the places in the northern tier of states where you'll find more Calvinists. In fact, there's in Grand Rapids, my favorite Michigan city, in Grand Rapids, there is a Calvin College. And wonder which church sponsors that college. Yeah. But I mean, denominationally speaking, there are more Calvinists than there are Roman Catholics in Western Michigan. And there are a lot of Dutch immigrants. Forgive me. Oh, sorry, that's terrible. I gotta go to bed earlier. Forgive me. Sorry. But anyway, so yeah, we're talking about John Calvin. And let me see. Oh, wait, I said there were three, didn't I? So there's the Huguenots, there's the Dutch Reformed Church that migrated up into the northern tier of states, and one more, a guy named, and you're writing, John Knox, Knox. Learned about John Calvin and Calvinism in Switzerland, and he went back to his native Scotland, and he began his own church, which became known as the Presbyterian Church. Oh, wait a minute, Mr. Orton. You said just up the road there, about 1,000 yards, On the left, there's a Presbyterian church. In fact, there's a lot of Presbyterian churches around here. Presbyterians, Scottish Calvinist. King James I was a Scottish Calvinist. Anyway, back to the matter at hand. So, yes, we are talking about John Calvin and Calvinism. Very important. Let's look. So, in the second half of the 16th century, John Calvin replaced Martin Luther as the dominant Protestant authority in Europe. See, I told you it's important. John Calvin was born in 1509. Remember, Martin Luther nailed the 95 Theses in 1517. So they're contemporaries, but Martin Luther was pretty much fading away when John Calvin was in his prime. By the way, you do know, of course, don't you, that Martin Luther, when he separated from the Catholic Church, he did several things. For one thing, being a priest, he got married. Martin Luther, now I'm talking about Martin Luther. Martin Luther got married. His wife, Katrina von Bora, was wait for it, a nun. Yeah, she was a nun. Anyway, getting back to John Calvin. John Calvin was born in 1509 into a wealthy family in Switzerland. He had all the advantages of his wealth. He was born Roman Catholic, including benefices. Those are entitlements to his rank from the Roman Catholic Church to go to get his education at the University of Paris. He then surrendered those benefices upon his conversion to Protestantism in the year 1534. 1534, the same year that Henry VIII broke away from the Roman Catholic Church. But that's another story. But it's good to keep dates in mind. So he converted to Protestantism in 1534. He then moved to Strasbourg in France. And Strasbourg, is it France? Is it? I mean, look at the name, Strasbourg. Come on, German scholars. What does that name mean, Strasbourg? Literally, it means street city. Yeah, Strasbourg. It's a German name. It's in France today. It's in the Alsace-Lorraine region. So he moved to Strasbourg, France, and became the pastor to exiles from persecution, basically starting his own church. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. Calvin and his followers were motivated, above all, by a desire to transform society morally. I got this right. Coke Zero. Caffeine Jack. Anyway, Calvin and his followers were motivated above all by a desire to transform society morally. Yeah, John Calvin was a believer in theocracies. Theocracies. Theocrac, either a Y or IES, whether it's singular or plural. But John Calvin saw, the best type of government, a theocracy. A theocracy is a government ruled by a faith. To transform society morally basically means to tell people what to do. So, however, Calvin participated in both the capture and execution of another religious reformer, Michael Servetus, in 1553, a man who denied the doctrine of the Trinity. Why is that worth throwing in there? It just shows that John Calvin, like Martin Luther, like many of these early Protestants who had been persecuted by the Roman Catholic Church, turned right around as soon as they were able to escape Roman Catholic persecution and persecuted other non-conforming Christians. Nothing like the love of Christ to make you want to kill your brother. I'm being facetious, and that's terrible. That's almost blasphemous, but it's sarcastic and quite true. Anyway, back to the matter at hand. By 1530, the Reformation was firmly entrenched in Europe, but it would go through several periods. Hmm. 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 Give me a sec. I've got to talk about John Calvin Calvinism because I don't have it written down here. What a shame. It is a shame. You see, John Calvin, how could I not have that written? The Calvinists had a specific set of beliefs, a specific set of beliefs. Calvinism is often thought of as the don't do it religion. Calvinists were against, in their writings, because not in the study guide, Calvinists were against playing cards, gambling, wearing gaudy clothes, dancing, singing frivolous songs. Now you say, Mr. Horton, what does all that mean? Well, dancing is obvious. I mean, he never saw Footloose. John Calvin believed that dancing encouraged avarice, sinfulness. Gambling and card playing on two fronts. Number one, card playing was looked upon as a waste of time, and time was precious. You should be working or praying or studying God's word. And gambling as a whole, think about it. When you go to a casino, I've never been to a casino. Actually, that's not true. I went to a casino when I was in Niagara Falls, Canada, because I heard they had the best conversion rates for American dollars to Canadian dollars. And so, yeah, I went then, but part of me is, I'm Protestant, I'm sorry, there's part of me that's just die hard. I can't gamble. But when you go to a gambling casino, if you've ever seen them, drove past them on the interstate, you see these bright lights and glitzy and all this stuff. Who do you think pays for all that? Who pays for all the glitz and all the things? And the answer is, if you go in a casino, you do. Because remember, the majority of people who go in a casino lose their money. John Calvin knew that. When you gamble, you are basically taking the money, the wealth that God has entrusted you with, that you worked for, and you are putting it at risk. And so that was forbidden. Singing frivolous songs. What is a frivolous song? A frivolous song is any song that does not praise God. Yeah. Wearing gaudy clothes. You say, what does gaudy mean? Colorful, bright, fashionable, attention garnering. Yeah. Yeah, not supposed to wear colorful clothes, attractive clothes. But Calvinists weren't all a rainy day. I'm being funny, actually, they were. Yeah, Calvinists said God does want the following things. And see, this is critically important, that God does want the following things. Number one, John Calvin said that there's this thing called, I can't believe I didn't put that in here. John Calvin believed in something called predestination or predetermination. There's no way I left that out of here. Predestination or predetermination. What does that mean? And this is really, 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 and I could say it a million times and it wouldn't be enough. Really, really, I'm hoping I'm not making you dizzy. Really, really important. Predestination. Predestination. You can spell this, Mr. Horton. Yes, you can. There that is. And there that is. It is called predestination or predetermination. And it goes like this: that God has known, I'm not going to write this out for you, that God has known since the dawn of time. Why does it do that? God has known, the idea is that if you believe that God is omnipotent and omniscient, I like big words. If you believe, and Calvinists do, that God is both omnipotent and omniscient. Omniscient means all powerful, omnipotent means all knowing. If you believe that, then it's logical to assume that since God is all knowing, God has known before the advent of time who is going to get into heaven. And see, that's the ultimate question. Who's going to get into heaven? Because John Calvin says, once again, there's this thing called predestination. And it's already been determined whether or not you're going to heaven or not. Now, of course, the skeptical person would say, well, if God already knows whether or not I'm going to heaven, then what's the point? And of course, the Calvinist would answer back, well, God knew you were going to say that. So therefore, you're not going to heaven because you don't have faith, and God knew you weren't going to have faith. You see? Now, you might say, well, really, that's a tempest in a teacup. That's, it's much ado about nothing. It doesn't mean anything. Well, not necessarily. You see, because here's the thing. Everybody wants to know if they're going to heaven. And so, according to John Calvin, God leaves little clues. That's messed up. Now, what are these clues? One, this thing is just messing my life up. I don't get it. One, yeah. One is and then two. Successful. And be successful in business. Now, the first one is not a big deal. It has been long, in fact, not just in Protestantism, Catholicism, in Christianity, but in Judaism, in fact, in lots of faiths, hold on to the idea that one of the signs of God's favor, one of the signs of God's elect, one of the signs that God likes you is to have a large family. I mean, for example, remember the story of when God first called Abraham, and God said to Abraham, "What do you want? You want to be rich? You want to have lots of properties?" And Abraham said, "I want to have descendants like the stars of the sky and like the sands of the ocean. Lots of children." So that's one thing. But now the second, that was earth shattering because, even Jesus in the New Testament at one point says it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. And by the way, the Bible is poorly translated in the King James Version. You see, for a camel to go through the eye of a needle, it doesn't really mean the eye of a sewing needle. The eye of a needle is a reference to the smallest gate of the city. For example, pretend that door, the classroom door over there, and that's about the size of it. Now, could you bring a camel through that door? Yeah, but it'd be very difficult. And so, yeah, that's what Jesus meant. But at any rate, for the longest time, Christian belief held that being wealthy and was incompatible with being righteous. John Calvin says, "No, being wealthy is actually a symbol of God's elect." And so, what this means is that you should work hard and do well in business. It's a sign of God's elect. A good Calvinist saves his money. A good Calvinist is ambitious. And by ambitious, it means, don't be a member of the club, be the president of the club. Make as much money as you can. Save that money. No, yes, definitely give God's portion to God. But you wouldn't take that money. You wouldn't take that money and spend all of it. You wouldn't give away all your money to charity. I mean, charity has its place, but you wouldn't give all of it, your money, to charity. No, you be judicious with that. But that was earth-shattering. Haven't you ever heard the term the Protestant work ethic? The idea that you should stay busy all the time. Stay busy all the time so that you can be productive. Anyway, yeah, that's the idea. And haven't you guys ever been sitting at your house and you're not doing anything? Just sitting on your couch. Maybe you're watching TV. Maybe you're flipping through your phone. And mom or dad comes to the room and says, "What you doing?" And you say, "Nothing," because you're not hurting anybody. And they make you do something. Thank John Calvin. I'm not lying. I mean, that's the Protestant work ethic. Thank John Calvin. Anyway, and so, yeah, Calvinism was a proponent of saving money, of doing well in business, of being frugal. Frugal means if you have a choice between buying what's on sale and what's fancy, you buy what's on sale. And enough of that. I've done enough John Calvin for today. I don't know why my notes are so messed up. Anyway, Roman numeral 12. By 1530, the Reformation was firmly entrenched in Europe, but the Reformation, would go through several periods of upheaval before it would be a recognized religious movement. The Habsburg Emperor, Charles V of Spain, basically dictated the edicts of the Diet of Augsburg, Council of Augsburg, from the Diet of Augsburg, but Protestantism was too firmly entrenched to allow it to have any real effect. You're saying, Mr. Horton, what does that mean? Well, So Charles V basically tried to, by passing laws, outlaw or suppress Protestantism, but Protestantism has gotten too firmly implanted in northern Germany. Charles V still was restrained from acting on, he couldn't do a whole lot about these Protestants because of renewed conflicts with their enemies, the French, and also the Turks. German Lutherans, led by Philip Melanchthon, the so-called preceptor of Germany, oversaw the enactment of certain educational reforms, Protestant educational reforms that included compulsory primary education. Compulsory primary education, meaning that compulsory means you have to do it. Primary is kindergarten, grade school education, education for girls, humanist revisions of the curriculum, and instruction for the laity, meaning non-priest of the new religion. In Denmark, which, if you know your European geography, is just to the north of Germany, in Denmark, Lutheranism became the official state religion. In Sweden, King Gustavus Vasa. There are two Gustavus. There's Gustavus Vasa and Gustavus Adolphus. Gustavus Vasa, this one we're talking about here, will be the one who adopts Lutheranism. Gustavus Vasa, greedy for church property, embraced Lutheranism. You say, what does that mean? So this king, Gustavus Vasa, was jealous of the fact that in his country of Sweden, the Roman Catholic Church owned not just lots of territory, but good property. And so he converts to Lutheranism and says, oh, all those Catholics are heretics, therefore they won't mind if I take their stuff. And that's what he did. Seized Roman Catholic lands and subjected the clergy to royal authority. In Poland, though, Poland was and is a bastion of Roman Catholicism. Say it again. In fact, Poland is either the first or the second most Catholic country in all of Europe. It might be the first. But yeah. Poland, because of the lack of a strong central government, allowed major sects of Christianity to coexist, and Poland became a model of religious pluralism. Pluralism. That means they allowed several religions and toleration in the second half of the 16th century. Charles V tried to get the Protestants to curb their actions through negotiations, and when that did not succeed, he turned to a military option. In other words, so Charles V tried to say, hey, okay, come on, guys, stop being Protestant. Please do what I say. And then when they refused, he said, okay, now I'm going to make you do it. There was one incident worth mentioning, and it is called the Defenestration of Prague. Defenestration of Prague, that may have misspelled. I think there's an I-E that goes here. Oh, that's it. The Defenestration of Prague was really interesting. Prague, of course, is a city in what is now the Czech Republic. I was there in 2018. And I looked for this place. Couldn't find it, though. But Charles V sent down several emissaries, diplomats, representatives of the Roman Catholic Church to Prague to talk to them about the fact that, they had embraced non-Catholic faiths. And so they met in this room, okay? And the building they met in, the room was like on the third floor. It was pretty high up, because what you find if you ever go into old buildings in Europe, when you are talking about a single floor, each floor is about 1.5 times as high as, for example, this ceiling in here, this is a 10-foot ceiling. So it's 15 feet high. And so you're talking about 50 feet off the ground. It's a jump. And during the course of this meeting between Catholic officials sent by Charles V and Protestant officials, the meeting got really heated, out of hand, and the Protestants grabbed up the Catholics and literally threw them out that third floor window. All of them. Well, it just so happened that directly below the window was a giant pile of horse and cow manure. I mean, it's big, it's a giant pile. And the Catholics fell into it. And as embarrassing as that might have been, that act saved their lives. And so both sides claimed victory. The Protestants said, "Ha ha, we threw you in a pile of, poopy." And the Catholics said, "Yes, but we survived the fall." But yes, it was quite interesting. It's called the Defenestration of Prague. So in 1547, his armies crushed the Protestant Schmalkaldic League, which was a league of various Protestant cities in Germany. He established puppet rulers in Saxony and Hesse, two German provinces, and forced the Protestants to readopt the old Catholic customs. Then, after suffering a defeat in 1552 at the hands of the Protestants, Charles V reinstated Protestant leadership and guaranteed Lutheran religious freedom at the Peace of Passau. And so truce. In the Peace of Augsburg, established the rule of, here is a word that will be on your test, guaranteed, slam dunk. Curus regio, ius religio, which tells you, which meant that the ruler of the land would determine the religion of the land. Yes, curus regio, ius religio, each prince chooses the religion. Also, in the Peace of Augsburg, just to show that this wasn't a purely religious conflict, any Roman Catholic lands seized prior to 1552 would remain in those hands. Yeah, in Protestant hands. So what we quickly see here is that this Protestant Reformation, Niccolo Machiavelli was dead on. Sex, money, and power run the world. Not religion, not morality, not any of those things. But the Peace of Augsburg applied only to Lutheranism and not Calvinism, and surely not Anabaptism. They were on their own. Calvinists then led nationalist-type revolutions throughout Northern Europe in the second half of the 16th century. Okay. 222. I think that's a good place to end, and I'm going to work on my notes now. I hope you enjoyed the 95 Theses wrap, and I will get with you tomorrow. So thank you all for dropping in. Have a good day.